On Christmas Eve, my mom unwrapped the gift my daughter made and said, "I don't take presents from kids who don't belong to this family." My daughter blinked twice, didn't even cry. Then, without missing a beat, my son stood up and said this. And my parents turned pale. I should have known Christmas Eve would be a disaster the second my mom called to remind me not to overdo it this year. That was code for, don't bring too much attention to my daughter. Don't try to make her too comfortable. Don't let her forget that she's not really one of us. She's 9 years old. She has the softest voice, reads everything she can get her hands on, and draws these little worlds in her sketchbook that make you forget you're even looking at something a kid made. She's everything I never knew I needed, and somehow, everything my parents decided not to accept. It's been 2 years since the adoption. 2 years of comments disguised as jokes, of side eyes and moments where she's been left out of family pictures. But I kept trying. Kept thinking maybe if we showed up to every gathering, brought food, smiled enough, they'd come around. I don't know why I believed that anymore. We got to their house just before 5. Snow was falling lightly, the kind that feels magical if you're not holding on to 100 pounds of resentment. The house looked the same as every year. Wreath on the door, mismatched chairs crammed around the table, that tired old ceramic village scene on the mantel. My mom greeted Tyler with a hug, told him he looked so grown. She looked at my daughter and just said hi. No name. Not even a fake smile. Tyler helped his sister with her coat. She held the little green-wrapped gift she'd made like it was glass. She'd spent the last week making it. A handmade scrapbook, page after page of memories. She'd even drawn my parents on the last page with, "Thank you for being my grandma and grandpa," written under it in her careful handwriting. He was proud of it. I was too. Dinner passed in a fog. My mom's cooking always tasted like tradition and tension. Everyone pretended things were normal. My sister's kids ran around. My dad told the same tired stories. I kept watching my daughter, how quiet she got, how she didn't reach for seconds even when I knew she was still hungry. After we ate, we gathered around the tree. My mom passed out gifts like she was running inventory. When my daughter shyly offered her the scrapbook, I saw her hesitate. He took it. Looked at it like it was something she didn't order. She tore the paper open, flipped through the first few pages. Then she closed it. And said loud and clear, "I don't take presents from kids who don't belong to this family." You ever feel the whole world tilt sideways? That's what it felt like. No one said a word. You could hear the wind outside. My daughter didn't cry. She didn't even frown. He just stood there blinking. Twice. I stood up. I don't even remember how. My hands were shaking and I opened my mouth, but before I could speak, Tyler got up. He didn't yell. Didn't even raise his voice. But somehow his words cut through every fake smile and forced laugh in that room. "Then maybe you don't deserve presents from people who do belong to this family." It landed like a punch. My dad started to say something, but Tyler didn't let him. "She's my sister. We chose her. That's more than what some people do with the family they're born into. If you can't see that, then you don't deserve to be called her grandparents." The room froze. One of my nephews, Jacob 15, looked around and then said, "He's right." Another cousin followed. Then another. Until the room was split. The kids, the next generation, were standing with mine. My parents didn't say anything else. They just stood there red-faced and stunned, holding a scrapbook they didn't deserve. I didn't wait for the next round of passive aggression. I told my kids to grab their coats. We were leaving. Christmas was over. But what none of us knew yet was that the real storm was still coming. We drove home in near silence. Tyler sat in the back with his arm around his sister like she was made of glass. She kept her eyes fixed on the window, not blinking much, like if she stared hard enough she could pretend she wasn't even there. I kept thinking about the moment. The way my mom had said it, so cold and certain. Like she'd rehearsed it. Like she'd been waiting for the opportunity to draw the line she thought I'd been ignoring. I had always known they didn't embrace the adoption, but this wasn't passive anymore. This was a statement. That night I tried to fake a little normal. Gave the kids their matching pajamas, made popcorn, let them open one gift each. I caught Tyler watching me. He was waiting to see if I'd cry. I didn't. But I knew I would eventually. Christmas morning was strange. Normally we'd head back to my parents by noon for brunch and the second round of presents. But this year the house stayed still. We opened gifts by the tree, just the three of us. It was quieter, but it felt lighter too. Like no one had to pretend. My daughter smiled a little when she opened the sweater Tyler had picked for her. He had chosen the color himself. Soft purple, her favorite. By early afternoon my phone started buzzing. First was my niece, Claire. "Hey, we're coming over if that's okay." My mom's fuming, but we're all really uncomfortable. "What your mom said last night was..." "Yeah. We're not okay with it." Half an hour later, Jacob and two of the older cousins texted too. They wanted to stop by, didn't want to celebrate at the house after what happened. I told them yes, of course. Bring whatever or nothing at all. They showed up by 4. No parents. Just them. A few carried containers of food they had quietly packed before leaving. Someone brought sparkling cider and cupcakes. We pulled chairs from the basement, sat around the kitchen table and ate like we were trying to pretend everything was normal. But the looks they gave my daughter weren't pity, they were warmth. They talked to her, asked her questions, invited her into their conversations. At one point, Claire helped her build a little gingerbread house. She leaned over and whispered something and my daughter giggled. That was the first time I heard her laugh since Christmas Eve. The next day I sent one text to my parents. We're doing New Year's at my place. Anyone who wants to come is welcome. I left space for you both. I didn't expect much. And I didn't get much. Just silence. Then came the backlash. My sister texted me a long, angry message. She claimed I had ruined Christmas. Said my son humiliated our parents. Said, Mom was crying all night and didn't even open the rest of her gifts. I read the whole thing and just stared at it. There was not a single mention of what had been said to a child. Not 1 ounce of accountability. Just blame. I didn't reply. Not that day. But what I did do was start preparing. I bought extra groceries, cleaned out the guest room, brought in a few folding chairs. Tyler helped me string lights on the porch. My daughter asked if we'd still have party hats and sparkling juice at midnight. I told her we'd have all of that and more. New Year's Eve came fast. By 7 the house was already full. Claire came early to help cook. Jacob brought board games. 3 of the cousins drove 2 hours just to be there. My Aunt June and her husband came, uninvited but very welcome. She gave me a long hug and whispered, I always wondered when you'd finally stop protecting them. There was music. Fireworks in the backyard. Laughter, real laughter, not the kind you force around people who make you feel small. My daughter was in the middle of it all, eating, playing, laughing. Tyler kept glancing at her like he was making sure she stayed okay. She did. At midnight we counted down together. Everyone shouted. Hugs everywhere. Tyler handed me a glass of sparkling cider and toasted. To the people who know how to love. The only empty chairs were the ones I'd left for my parents. Still sitting by the door. They never came. And I think in that moment, everyone in the room finally realized something. They had chosen the wrong side. And that choice, that quiet little act of pride, was going to cost them more than they ever imagined. The first week of January passed in a strange stillness. It was like my house had finally exhaled after holding its breath through years of quiet tension. The decorations were still up, though a little droopy now. We hadn't rushed to take anything down. Maybe because for the first time the holidays had felt like ours. Tyler was back to school and already planning his basketball tournament. My daughter, still shy at drop-off, had started drawing little comics again, full of castles and glowing forests and sisters with magic powers. I'd catch her sketching on the couch after school and sometimes I'd notice, her characters smiled more now. My parents hadn't called. Not once. But I wasn't surprised. They didn't know how to reach out without controlling the tone of the conversation. Without being right. On the 10th my phone lit up during dinner. A short text from my dad. We need to talk. In person. No apology. No, how are the kids? No acknowledgement of what had happened. I stared at the message. Tyler leaned over, read it and just said, Are they seriously trying to reset like nothing happened? I didn't respond to the text. I wasn't avoiding it. I was done making things easier for them. 3 days later they showed up unannounced. It was a Saturday evening. We were still in sweatpants, halfway through a puzzle on the dining table. My daughter was in the next room drawing and I had just started heating up soup. Then the doorbell rang. Through the peephole I saw both of them. My mom holding her purse like a shield. My dad with that usual clenched jaw look he wore when he was about to say something unforgivable but believed it was necessary. I opened the door because I wanted to face them on my turf. I didn't want to keep dodging what I knew was coming. They walked in without being invited. Didn't even glance at the kids. My daughter stayed in her room. Tyler stood at the threshold of the hallway, arms crossed. He didn't say anything but he was listening. We sat. It was the most awkward silence I'd ever felt in my own house. Then my mom started talking. She said what happened at Christmas had been taken the wrong way. That she was trying to make a joke, and things got twisted. She said the scrapbook had made her feel put on the spot, and she reacted poorly. I didn't say a word. I just waited for one single thing. An apology. But it didn't come. My dad jumped in, told me that the kids these days were too sensitive. That real family doesn't fall apart over one comment. That I had made everyone uncomfortable by leaving on Christmas Eve. And that's when Tyler stepped forward from the hallway. Come clear. You're right, he said. Real family doesn't fall apart over one comment. It falls apart after years of treating someone like they don't matter, and finally getting called out. My mom tried to say something about not understanding modern parenting. My dad made a jab about raising soft kids. And Tyler, bless him, didn't yell. He just stood there and said, "She's not soft. He's strong. She stayed in that room when you humiliated her and didn't cry once. You think she doesn't belong? Maybe you're the ones who don't." They went quiet. For a second, I think my mom might have realized how far they'd gone. But then my dad said something that flipped the switch in me completely. He muttered, "You're throwing away your own parents over some adopted charity case." I stood up. "You need to leave." My mom looked stunned. "We came here to fix this." "No. You came here to make yourselves feel better. You're not here for her. You're not even here for me. You're here because the rest of the family stopped pretending you were right." They didn't argue. They didn't beg. They just left. When the door closed behind them, I stood there for a long time. My chest was tight, not with sadness but clarity. That night I pulled out a notebook. Wrote down every bill I had been paying for them. The electricity, the gas, the cell phone top-ups, the overdue fees I covered every other month. I totaled it. Then I opened my laptop and started making calls. I canceled every single one. That money, it was going to my kids now. The next day I signed Tyler up for a leadership camp out of state. Bought my daughter a professional set of drawing supplies. She hugged the markers to her chest like they were treasure. When she asked if Grandma and Grandpa were coming back, I told her gently, "Only if they learn how to treat people right." She nodded. "Then it might take a really long time." I smiled. "That's okay. We're not in a hurry." And then, exactly 19 days after Christmas, their lights went out. It wasn't a bill, a call, or even a text that told me their electricity had been shut off. It was Mrs. Ellison, my parents' neighbor, who called while I was packing my daughter's lunch on a Tuesday morning. "Sweetheart, I don't mean to be nosy," she said, "but I've noticed something. Your parents' house has been dark every night for almost a week. And yesterday I saw your father running an orange extension cord through the window. It was plugged into the car in the driveway." I leaned against the counter. "He's powering the house with the car? Well, maybe just a lamp or two. But it doesn't look right, Stacy. Your mom was using a flashlight on the porch." I didn't ask her to explain. I knew exactly what was happening. When I canceled the utilities, I figured it'd take a month before the consequences caught up to them. Apparently, it only took 19 days. That's how long it had been since the new year. Since I stopped paying. Since I stopped pretending they deserved my support. The truth is, I'd been paying more than just the electric bill. Over the years, it had snowballed: gas, phone, groceries delivered to their door because it's too hard to go out in the snow. I made excuses. Told myself they were just old-fashioned, not cruel. But now I saw it for what it was. They were only ever kind when it served them. I told Tyler after school. "They lost power," I said. He raised an eyebrow. "And they're running cords from the car." He smirked. "Poetic." I waited for guilt to kick in. It didn't. And then came the call from my sister. She didn't say hello. "You seriously let the power get turned off?" Mom's freezing. Dad's furious. "What is wrong with you?" I didn't flinch. "What's wrong with you? You saw what happened on Christmas Eve and you said nothing." She tried to spin it, said our parents were just shocked by everything, that they weren't trying to be mean. That maybe I could help for one more month, and we'd figure it out later. I told her no. She got quiet. Then said something that stuck with me. "They don't know how to fix this without you." I said, "Then maybe they shouldn't have broken it." And I hung up. The silence that followed was longer than I expected. A week passed. No letters. No messages. I thought maybe that was the end of it until Thursday afternoon. I was working from home and it was raining hard, one of those cold sideways rains that chills you through the windows. I was in the middle of checking an email when I saw movement through the front window. It was my dad. Standing at the foot of the porch steps. No umbrella, no coat. Just soaked through and holding something wrapped in a plastic grocery bag. I didn't open the door. I watched him through the glass for a moment, waiting to see if he was going to bang or shout or do something dramatic. But he didn't. He looked up and even from that distance I could see something unfamiliar on his face. Something close to shame. He didn't ask to come in. He didn't say anything. Then he placed the bag on the bottom step and turned around. I opened the door only after he drove off. Inside the bag was the scrapbook. The same one my daughter made. The corners were bent now, the front page a little waterlogged, but it was all there. Tucked inside was a note in his handwriting. I read every page. He called me Grandpa. I didn't deserve it. But she meant it. If she wants this back, I understand. If not, I'll leave it at that. I didn't cry. But something in me cracked open a little. That night, I handed the scrapbook to my daughter. "Grandpa brought it back," I said. She didn't say anything at first. She sat cross-legged on the rug and flipped through it slowly. When she got to the last page, the drawing of my parents holding hands in front of a tree, she stared at it for a long time. Then quietly she got up, went to her art supplies and picked out a dark blue marker. She sat back down and began filling in the background behind them. Little dots, circles, shapes. Tyler walked by and asked what she was doing. She didn't look up. Adding stars. Why stars? Because sometimes people need a little more light before they figure out where they're standing. I didn't say anything. But that night I started to wonder, maybe, just maybe, the story wasn't quite over yet. Not for them. Not for her. Not for me. February came in sharp and gray. The Christmas lights were long taken down, the snow had melted into slush and the phone stayed silent. My daughter was back into her routine. School, drawing, making up stories about magical places where everyone was welcome. I think she was still hoping something would shift, but she never said it out loud. I'd already told myself I was done. I'd already stopped the payments. But the strange part about cutting someone off is that it never feels final when the damage they did lives quietly in your house. That week I got an email from the gas company. A confirmation that the final unpaid balance had been moved out of my name. I hadn't realized I was still listed as a co-signer. They were $782 behind. The electricity had been off for 3 weeks by then. I knew it because of Mrs. Ellison, who had texted again. They've been going to the public library every day now. Your mom sits by the heater. Your dad reads the paper like everything's normal. That was them. Pretending. Always pretending. And then the news clip happened. It was a Sunday afternoon. I was folding laundry, half listening to the local news on the TV, when my daughter walked in holding a juice box. "Mom," she said, "why is Grandpa on TV?" I looked up and there he was. My dad standing outside the county utility office, coat zipped up to his chin, giving an interview. He was saying things like, "We're on fixed incomes. Some of us raised families and worked hard and now we're just left behind." The reporter asked if he had any help from his children. He paused. Looked directly into the camera. "No. Not anymore." I stared at the screen. My daughter was frozen, watching his face as if she could find a trace of warmth in it. He didn't. The segment ended and cut to the weather. I turned off the TV. I didn't say anything. Neither did she. That night Tyler came into my room holding his phone. "Mom," he said, "you need to see this." The clip had already made it to a few social media pages. Someone had reposted it with the caption, "Is this the face of forgotten seniors? Or a man who pushed his family away?" The comment section was wild. Some people felt bad for him. Others were digging deeper. A few asked why a grown man with 2 adult daughters couldn't keep his lights on. One user said, "I bet there's more to this story." Another said, "He doesn't look like someone who admits his mistakes." Tyler scrolled for a second, then showed me a comment that stopped me cold. It was from Claire, my niece. "That's my grandpa. He told my cousin she wasn't family because she's adopted. This isn't about money. This is about pride." There was. Out in the open. I stared at the comment and for a second I felt like something inside me came unglued. Not because Claire had said it, but because someone finally had. For years we all walked around it, tiptoed, swallowed the tension, smiled in pictures and ignored the coldness that hovered over every birthday, every holiday. But now a teenager had said what all the adults were too afraid to. And I realized something that hadn't hit me fully until that moment. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt either. Not like I had been. I wasn't waiting for an apology. I wasn't hoping for some Hallmark-style reunion. What I felt now was something else entirely. I was free. Later that night my daughter came to me with the scrapbook in her hands. The one Grandpa had brought back in the rain. She sat on the couch beside me and opened it to the last page. "Do you think he meant it?" she asked. I looked at the drawing, the one she'd added stars to. "I think he meant parts of it," I said. "But he still wants people to think none of this is his fault." She nodded, very small. Then, without looking at me, said, "Would you still be my mom if he said he never wanted me?" I wrapped my arms around her. "I was your mom before he ever knew your name. And I'll be your mom long after he's forgotten it." She rested her head against me and didn't say anything else. The next morning I made my final decision. I logged into the last 2 portals I still had access to, my parents' old phone plan and a shared grocery delivery account I'd been paying into for the last 4 years. I removed my payment info, canceled the plan, logged out for good. I took the money I would have spent this month and used it to sign my daughter up for an art workshop. I bought Tyler a pair of new basketball shoes he'd been eyeing but didn't want to ask for. We ate dinner together that night. Just the 3 of us. No one asked about my parents. And for the first time I didn't leave a chair empty for them. Not at the table. Not in my head. I didn't need them to come back anymore. I just needed my kids to know they had someone who would never leave. The cold hung around longer than usual that year. By March, the snow had turned to frozen rain and everything felt stuck between seasons. Not winter, not spring, just that uncomfortable in-between. I figured that's where my parents were too. I hadn't heard from them since the TV interview. Neither had Tyler. My sister had gone quiet. Claire messaged once to say she was grounded for airing family business, but she didn't regret it. I thought maybe that was it, that the chapter had closed. But it wasn't. One afternoon I came home from work and saw their car in front of my house. Not parked. Just sitting at the curb. My mom was in the passenger seat, my dad behind the wheel. He looked older. Tired. For a second I wondered if they'd been there a while watching the house. I didn't wave. Didn't go outside. Just walked through the door and locked it behind me. They didn't leave. 10 minutes later there was a knock. Tyler was the one who answered it, not me. He opened the door, stepped outside and pulled it shut behind him. I couldn't hear the whole conversation, but I saw my dad try to hand him something. Tyler didn't take it. When he came back inside, he handed me a folded piece of paper. No envelope. My name written on the front in my mom's handwriting. I didn't read it right away. I made dinner. We ate. We cleaned up. My daughter showed me a drawing of a mermaid with a wolf as a best friend. It was only after they were in bed that I opened the note. It was 4 sentences long. We're sorry. Not just for what we said, but for what we didn't say for years. We thought family had to look a certain way. We were wrong. We want to meet her again if she'll let us. It didn't hit me the way I thought it would. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just sat there with it in my hands, rereading it until the words felt like they belonged to someone else's life. That night I slept on it. The next morning I told my daughter. They want to see you. She looked up from her cereal. Do I have to? No. Not ever. She was quiet for a minute. Then said, maybe just one time. If Tyler's there. So that weekend we met at a public park. I chose the place carefully. Neutral. Safe. They brought a bag of cookies and a blanket and tried their best to smile like nothing had ever happened. Tyler didn't speak to them much, but he sat close to his sister the entire time. My mom gave her a coloring book and said she was sorry, softly and not very well. My dad said he'd been proud of her artwork. That he should have said it sooner. My daughter didn't say much, just colored one of the pages in the new book while they watched. When we left, no one cried. No one said, let's do this again. It was just a quiet goodbye. I think they understood it wasn't a beginning, not really. It was a moment. Nothing more. And maybe that's all it ever could be. The truth is, I didn't do any of this for them. I didn't cut them off to punish them. I didn't stop paying their bills to teach a lesson. I did it because I had 2 kids who needed to know exactly where I stood. Who needed to see that love isn't conditional. That you don't keep people in your life who refuse to see your worth, no matter what their title is. They lost electricity. They lost heat. They lost comfort. But more than anything, they lost access. Access to what we'd built. To the nights at our table. To the people we were becoming. They were slowly starting to accept her now, yes. But it wasn't heroic. It wasn't redemption. It was survival. They were lonely, embarrassed, and clinging to what little ground they had left. Me. I was no longer angry. But I was disappointed in a way I don't think they'll ever understand. Because in the end, my daughter never needed their approval. She needed protection. And she got it. From me, from Tyler, from people who showed up when it mattered. She still calls them grandma and grandpa sometimes. But I don't call them anything anymore. Because sometimes when people show you who they really are, you don't fight it. You just finally believe them.